Putra Shishima Isi Bhaktivedanta Krishna Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Guru Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Iskam Vibhiti Founder Church Prabhupada Ki Go Premananda. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to the Son of the Lord. All glories to Shishi Guru Guru Shishi. Krishna Smita Krishna Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharana Nivise Sasagavani Paskachari Satari Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stavitaya Nabhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dharati Tasyaparantikam Vandaham Sri Guru Sri Uttama Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sakariyatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Salivam Sadvaitam Savadhitam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitabhisha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Dikapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchatapatarubhisha Kripasinubhyabhisha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Shivasa Gaur Bhattacharya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
I thought of looking in Bhagavad-Gita, it is chapter 18, I think text 56. Hare Krishna. The 18th chapter is the last chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Of course, you all know that. Most of you, I believe, is regular visitors, experienced visitors since long time, well, experienced. I read 56, okay. It says like this. Sarvakamanya pisada kurvano madhyapasraya mad prasada vapnoti sasvatam paramavayam. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Purport. The word Madhyapasrayaha means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. To be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. There is no time limitation for a pure devotee. He is always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme Lord. To a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, The Lord is very, very, very kind. In spite of all difficulties, he is eventually placed in the transcendental abode, or Krishna Loka. His guaranteed entrance there. There's no doubt about it. In that supreme abode, there's no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. Because what I've found interesting is when it says in the translation, thou engage in all kinds of activities. Because when I'm reading, we're reading about the pure devotee. The pure devotee engaged in all kinds of activities. Because then I think, well, that must be Prabhupada. He was a pure devotee engaged in all kinds of, so to say, all kinds of activities. Like he describes himself, when he had taken sannyas, he lives in Vrindavan, and he has his headquarters there, and he is translating his books, and he's publishing his Bhagavatams. In order to publish a Bhagavatam, he has to do what sadhus otherwise don't do. He has to go to the marketplace, buy paper, go get the paper to the printing place, negotiate with the printer, make a deal, go to the bank, make bank transactions, etc. Getting the books, okay, now this is transcendental books, and distribute them in shops and libraries and everywhere, working around active in the society. So we can say he's doing all kinds of activities. Of course, here he's doing it all for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Personality of God and Supreme Lord Krishna. Otherwise, I thought of the maybe other devotees who are not so pure devotees, attempting devotees of various categories, also having to engage in all kinds of activities. If you get married, many times you have to get a job, and sometimes at least, if not all the time. You have to have income, you have to have this and that, struggling to get your wrongs done in different ways. And still, you get the thought. Thou engage in all kinds of activities. The point is, thou engage in all kinds of activities, because we think the devotee should be engaged only in devotional service. But here Krishna says all kinds of activities. But still, Krishna says, my pure devotee, because the question is, are we pure devotees? That is a challenge. The challenge is to be a pure devotee. How can you be a pure devotee if you engage in all kinds of activities? Krishna says that. Well, I said Prabhupada was a pure devotee. When we read the purport, I think of that. How does Prabhupada say? He says, there's no time limit for a pure devotee. You know that there's no limit as to how much time you can use in the service of the Lord. Well, otherwise we say the time limit, sorry, I'm not a pure devotee of the Lord, I'm going to finish the lecture at 5 o'clock. There's a time limit. Someone more transcendental devotee would just go on and speak. Not care for the time limitations. Okay, we're going to make it. We're going to make a kirtan here, so it's a 3 to 4. Okay, we put certain time limits. Let's have I was yesterday had a bhajan evening here, 4 to 10, let's say. Okay, that's not so bad. But still, it's like we put maybe a certain limit. Maybe for us to get some concept of, at least we do so much. If we don't put a time, then maybe it even becomes less. But for the pure devotee, there is no time limit. There is no need of a time limit. There's no need to say, okay, now you chant 16 rounds. huge morons. How many? It's not a matter. Minimum, what's the maximum? Is there a maximum? No. Maybe we have minimums, we don't have maximums. Minimum devotion and maximum devotion. No, it's a minimum devotion and then there's unlimited devotion. That's the same. Unlimited devotional service. Okay. Well, there's certainly unlimited service to be done to the Supreme Lord, or that to be done, or that can be done for the Supreme Lord. There is unlimited, no problem. The question is, how much can we do, so to say? How pure are we, so to say, to fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord? How pure or fully engaged in the devotional service do we need to be that we be under the protection of the Lord? That's the question. Because now the businessman, well, if I do this much, then Krishna will protect me. Just do enough so that they get the Krishna's protection. Because that kind of business mentality will not work either. Because devotional service is not a business. That's like Dhruva Maharaj. What was it, Dhruva Maharaj? That was Prahlad Maharaj who spoke about being a businessman. Yeah, it was Prahlad Maharaj. I mean, after all these problems with his father, and finally the Lord Himself comes to deliver His pure devotee from the difficulty. And then the father is so liberated, killed, I don't know what. Delivered by the father, by Nishingadev, and then Nishingadev offers blessings to his pure devotee. The pure devotee who has suffered so much, who have gone through so many tribulations, for the sake of his beloved Lord, Prahlad Maharaj. But Prahlad Maharaj did not lament. Okay, it was so difficult. Why didn't you come earlier? No, he's fully satisfied. He's fully confident in the Lord. I mean, he could have gone on, but the Lord chose to come at that point. So you're asking, the Nishingadev offers, whatever you want, you can have. But Prahlad Maharaj says, no, I'm not a businessman. I'm not engaging in your devotional service in order to get something. Business, I say that's. I give so much and I get this much. Okay, I've done so much, you should protect me. No, yes, in one sense, Krishna will protect us. Whether we will protect us in the way we thought is another question. Why does Krishna let this happen to Prahlad Maharaj? Why didn't he protect his devotee better? On the other hand, the devotee was protected. I mean, the little boy is put into boiling oil and nothing happens to him, and he's trying to have the elephant crush him, and the elephant won't step on him, and he's thrown off cliffs, and he's just unharmed lands at the bottom of the cliffs. Or he's put in freezing cold, and he doesn't freeze to death, as other normal person would have done in these conditions. So the Lord did protect him. The Pandava brothers were pure devotees, great devotees of the Lord, That's what happens to great devotees. They have to go through this, or they face these trials or tests. I mean, how many trials, how many tests did they not have to go through? So why the Lord put me? And then the Lord comes and protects them. Okay, but that we see a little bit. He puts them in difficult situation, and then He comes and delivers them, or saves the situation. Of course, that is His pastime, His lila. In one sense, you can say seems like Krishna arranges these situations so that He can come and deliver His devotees. protect them. That is Krishna's fun, to deliver his devotees from difficult situations. So, how much do we have to surrender? Because, as Prabhupada pointed out, there was one verse also in the Bhagavad-Gita where Krishna says that, well, if someone is a devotee, is a sincere devotee but still have some material attachment to something, he sometimes takes away things just so that the devotee can fully surrender to the Lord. Call for the Lord in great need. My dear Lord, please save me. Okay, so of course the pure devotees then, they in one sense they don't expect it, they're not businessmen, we shouldn't be businessmen, but we try to serve the Lord. And there may be that the devotees in various circumstances has to do all kind of activities, I would like to see it that way. But still, if we're trying to sincerely serve the Lord, please the Lord, or continue, the Lord's protection will be there. Of course, protection, how does it mean? Well, the one thing important is the protection of our consciousness, of our desire to please the Lord. Protecting our desire to become devotees. If the desires is there, everything will be okay. If there's no desire, then how does it work? It will not, so to say, go on. Okay, it says, under my protection, reaching the eternal imperishable abode by my grace, Krishna says. So, because the description here in the purport, I see, well, Prabhupada, we could say, he was that pure devotee, engaging in all kind of activities for the sake of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. And eventually, Krishna protecting him, and having him enter the eternal abode of the Lord. So what is the hope for us? Well, the hope for us is to say, take shelter at the feet of Srila Prabhupada. We may not be on that level, but we take shelter directly or indirectly of that devotee who has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. That's, so to say, a safe position. Now we may say, when Prabhupada left, and he didn't leave us, he left his instructions with us. And he is also spiritually present in many ways. So sometimes we can perceive or it's perceived. And then you think, well, Prabhupada was here. And then sometimes ask, how was it when Prabhupada was here? And yesterday I had a question, said, well, how did I meet Prabhupada? And then I said, well, how did I meet Prabhupada? The question was more for me, how did I meet the devotees of Srila Prabhupada, or disciples of Srila Prabhupada? That was how I met Prabhupada. Even then, 1970, because this is Krishna's trick. I could almost have met Prabhupada in Hungary, 1969. But it didn't happen. Okay, Krishna's arrangement. I mean, I was too young. I would have stayed there and the police would come and pick me up and bring me back to Sweden. In 1970 I was 18 and I was free to do what I wanted. 1969. Prabhupada came to Germany in 1969. I don't know if you know that. He came for a visit to Hamburg in September 1969. I saw the devotees in Hamburg, the summer maybe June, July. And I just saw them, and then I came back to Hamburg to see if I find those devotees towards the middle or end of August, before school starting. I went through Hamburg, but I didn't find them. But I just imagined, well, what if I would find them and they said that, well, our spiritual master is coming in September. I could almost have met him. Okay, almost, but it didn't happen. But 1 year later I came back and I met the devotees, so that way I met Prabhupada. through his devotees, through his disciples. And they told me about Prabhupada, they told about Krishna consciousness, and then I engaged in Krishna consciousness according to their directions, as gotten from Prabhupada and as whatever, trying. And in that way I would say, the way of meeting Prabhupada and being in contact with Prabhupada. And that by that contact we also become transformed. We may not become the greatest pure devotees or as qualified of Prabhupada, but each devotee in their way take the instructions, apply them in the life and go on with Krishna consciousness. And then I could say, well, in that way, why will Krishna not give his protection? Or try to protect, or try to support so that the devotee can go on. Okay, here the Prabhupada says, to a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. In spite of all, in the case of nonsense, I say that is Prabhupada's experience. Okay, then we can say, Prabhupada being a pure devotee, sincerely trying to preach Krishna consciousness. To the devotee thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, 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 very kind. Then Prabhupada said, in spite of all difficulties, he is eventually placed in the transcendental abode of Krishna Loka. Well, I don't know when was it Prabhupada wrote this or dictated this Bhagavad-Gita, but he was still facing difficulties. You could think, well, he was facing difficulties. I mean, how was it? He was in New York, basically alone, staying in some kind of small office there, rented a room, office room, he had his manuscript for the Bhagavad-Gita there, and then someone breaks in and steals it. That's a difficulty. That's a terror. I mean, it's enough if you just would have taken the typewriter. Then you can get a new one, with the whole manuscript for the Bhagavad-Gita. So Prabhupada in that way, very much, in spite of all difficulties, well, he faced so many difficulties. And then, of course, he was taken care of, in one sense, when the preaching started, when the first disciples actually started to come. It started to be taken care of by his disciples, by Krishna through his disciples. But then, even then, Prabhupada faced such a difficulty, how to manage such an organization on a worldwide scale, with his good disciples, who could cause all kind of conflicts and problems in between themselves. So then one happy family, all peacefully working together. It's like one happy family quarreling. This happened and that happened. So, but Prabhupada went on, knowing that in spite of all difficulties, he is eventually placed in the transcendental abode of Krishna Loka. So Krishna protects, well, Krishna's protection, so, but it's still, we may have to face our difficulties. Another thing, I said yesterday, the other day we said something about, Prabhupada said something in the purport about earning, what was it, earning the mercy or something. You have to earn, in one sense, Krishna consciousness, we don't get it for free. Well, we get it for free, but you have to take it and apply it. So then, and applying it may have to face many difficulties. Oh no, everything should be easy. Yes, it's easy and at the same time not easy. You can say this is a contradictory position of Krishna. Kind of contradictory in one sense, the Krishna consciousness. It's easy. We say, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. No problems. And in one sense, that is, on a deeper level, that is the reality. So there's like different levels of reality. One level it is easy, another level is also difficult. This Krishna consciousness is very easy and it's very sometimes so difficult. But at the same time, our external society, living external, so-called normal life, maybe many of you in one way of living a so-called normal life, whatever is a normal life, and then maybe someone thinks of normal devotee life in the temple. What is a normal devotee life? Because what is that? Once in Sweden, as I was for a period of time trying to take care of the cows, giving a try, sincere try. So there was some small farm conference, and the lady there tried to explain what is a normal summer. I don't know what a normal summer is like. Well, there is an average, normal, normally a summer starts then and ends there and rains so much and sunshine so much, in a sense. But the reality is, there is no normal summer. Each summer is different. And you can make an average, okay? But the average is not normal. You don't have an average summer. Each summer is different, at least in Sweden, maybe not in Switzerland. So that we can say also a normal devotee can make an average. What is a normal devotee? Well, you don't have normal devotee. You don't have normal anything. Everything is individual. Everything is different. Each one of us is an individual person, individual devotee, attempting devotee or more serious devotee or whatever we want to call it. But to think that something should be normal, that sounds quite good, Forget about being normal. Be different. Be outstanding. Be a different, outstanding devotees, serving the Lord, either as a grihastha, or as a brahmachari, as a sannyas, as a vanaprastha, or as a bhakta, or as a friend of Krishna consciousness. In either case, be different, be outstanding in your way. Krishna makes all these differences. He doesn't make all one. He makes all difference. He makes us also. We're all one, but we're all different. Luckily. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay. So as devotees also, we are not all the same, we're all different, but we, from our position, try to serve the Lord to our best capacity. And then, in spite of all difficulties, we can have a hope that Krishna, that He will guarantee us entrance there into the spiritual world. Because when it will happen, I don't really know, I'm not quite sure. But Prabhupada said, I will say Prabhupada saying, 16 rounds, 4 regulated principles, you come back to Godhead. But then again, to do that for the rest of your life is a challenge. So maybe it doesn't sound so big. But if someone managed to follow that, practice that only for the rest of his life, it's quite an accomplishment. Taking into consideration the circumstances in which we're operating as devotees, so to say. Being devotees here in the West in modern times, or maybe even in India, because everything is going upside down. Okay, so the Bhagavad-Gita here is this verse here. When I thought, though engaged in all kind of activities, my pure devotee under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. And then actually it says, by my grace. That's also promising. Because if it depends on my own endeavor and my own qualification, and guess what's the hope And because I'm a great devotee. we should be outstanding great devotees. But the devotees in general don't think that way. We don't think that way. And that's natural, because when we become a little bit purified, maybe our ego wants to project outward that we are great of this and that. But when we're a little bit purified and rectified and we're a little bit honest with ourselves, we may realize that we're not such great devotees. Well, small devotees, attempting devotees. Okay. But, so what hope is there? What is how strong are we? No, we are not strong, but Krishna is strong. By His grace, we can attain the eternal abode. At the same time, we do our part. And that's a challenge. Of course, we do our small part, or small and small, maybe the small, and sometimes to do the small thing is a big thing. And sometimes, once I discussed with a lawyer, he was practicing some yoga. And they said, this bhakti yoga is very easy, it's not very complicated. Said, oh yes, I know. But not very complicated things, it's not so easy to do. We want something complicated or sophisticated things, let's say. In one sense, it may look, this bhakti yoga is not very sophisticated or not very, whatever like that. Just chanting on your beats, just following four regulated principles. That's quite a challenge, let's say. So it may not be sophisticated. It is sophisticated, but it may not be so extraordinarily complicated in one sense. But just to do that is a challenge. Let's say, to do a small thing for Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. Patram puspam palam tuyam yome bhakta prayachati tadaham bhakta paritam tsunami prayatatmanaha. Offer me with love and devotion a big temple. No, it doesn't say a big temple. So we have big. It's not even a big temple. But it's a nice temple. I tell you, this temple is better than what we had in Hamburg, 1970, okay. So then there's many places like that, that's nice. Oh, actually, what Krishna says, offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, and water. In one sense, we can say, offer me some small thing. What do you have? Give it with love and devotion. I will accept it. He will accept the offering. In one sense, that means He will accept us also. So, to do something small thing with love and devotion for Krishna, and then the big thing is to do it with love and devotion. We chant japa, to do it with love and devotion, with attention and care. To read the books of Prabhupada with love and devotion, with attention and care, love and devotion. To worship the deity with love and devotion. Of course, when we have resources, we put the resources in. But then you can have so many resources, but without love and devotion, it's incomplete. That's a spice, what makes the offering tasty for Krishna. Same time there, I would say, the spice of love and devotion is a little bit, then also love and devotion. Sometimes devotional service mixed with a little bit of an austerity. So we maybe thinks it should be easy, it should be happy, or it should be just fun all the time. Some austerity is required. It's required to some austerity, a little bit, whatever is in your capacity. Some sacrifice, maybe a little bit extra sacrifice. That makes it extra tasty. Otherwise, I use the example of porridge. You know porridge. You say bread, German.
Also porridge.
Porridge, okay. Yes. Okay. So porridge without salt, without some sugar, without some maybe raisins, but it doesn't taste very much. I mean, maybe a very nice meal, like that, sufficient. But that doesn't really taste very much. But you add a little bit extra like that, and then it becomes tasty and appreciated. So that way we can also offer our devotion. Put in a little bit of austerity for the sake of pleasing Krishna. Doing a little bit extra with extra care, and it becomes more tasty for Krishna. And then actually we progress in the spiritual life. Okay, so by Krishna's grace, so we do a little bit extra, something small, with a little bit extra touch of devotion, just like the fruit and flower. So if you really want to offer nice fruit and flower for Krishna, the best is if you can grow it yourself. And Prabhupada said, and it's 100 times more valuable offering. And we can buy it in the shop easy like that. Okay, we should offer a flower, we buy it in the shop and offer it. And when we pick it, when we grow it and pick it ourselves, we're putting an extra endeavor into it to make it something nice, pure, with your own hands, so to say. Then it becomes so much more pleasing to the Lord. So that extra sacrifice or extra endeavor for the sake of pleasing the Lord. Okay, by my grace, by Krishna's grace. So that way we serve the Lord, we try to serve the Lord with great, to our best capacity. And then, by Krishna's grace, we may enter into the eternal abode. And of course, we may or may not be perfectly complete and pure in that way, but Krishna can add the extra, which we fail. Just like Putana, what a witch, what a terrible woman. I'm sorry. She is taking pleasure in whatever, taking small babies and sucking their blood. I mean, that's what's said in the Bhagavad-Gita. What a kind of person. And she comes and wants to kill Krishna. She wants to kill Krishna. And she's dressed and transforms herself to the most beautiful, attractive lady. Looks like she's coming from the heavens. Put some poison on her breast. That's gonna give Krishna her breast to suck so that he dies. That's the Puta. What a demon. And then Krishna, how kind Krishna is, Rita says. She's coming like mother. I would go to him like his mother. Of course, there was a past life also where she was a sister of Bali Maharaj. And that's also in the background of the story. Bali Maharaj is making his sacrifice there, and he's conquered the heavens, and he's sitting there in his perfection of life as a king of the universe, basically speaking. And then Vamandev comes walking, such a beautiful little boy, shining like the sun, and everyone is just mesmerized or totally attracted by him. And then this sister of Bali Maharaj, she falls in love with him like a motherly in a way, she sees. But then what does this little boy, cute boy do? He takes everything away from Bali Maharaj and humiliates Bali Maharaj. And then the sister, being from the demonic background, becomes very angry and is going to give it back to Vamandev. Okay, so next life becomes as Putana. But still, somewhere at one point in the past, they thought of Krishna positively as a mother, like that. Okay, so with this comes this devotee. So that's not a devotee. But still, Krishna accepts the small point that she wanted to come like a mother. And of course, he purifies her. Of course, very kindly. Do we want that kind of purification? And Krishna sucked her life around the poison and everything. I mean, it was not a pleasant experience like that, but still it said she entered into the spiritual world and got the position. That's like like that of a mother, motherly position of the Lord in the spiritual world. So by the grace of the Lord, so if she made it, maybe there's some hope for us also. But we don't have to become Putanas. So devotees, but by Krishna's grace, we can go back to Godhead. Or maybe, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if you have to go back to Godhead, it just seems to have to be nicely engaged in devotional service. By Krishna's grace, we can be nicely engaged in devotional service. And then actually we don't have to enter the spiritual world, we can already be in the spiritual world, here and now. So very much. Prabhupada said the temple is a spiritual world, there's a deities, there's service, there's devotees, it's a spiritual world. And then said, please don't leave the spiritual world, don't leave the temple. Because nowadays, most have left the temple and lives outside. Because on the other hand, everyone is trying to make a nice little temple in their home, to some degree at least. So we make, because in that way, nicely engaged in devotional service, engaged in devotional service, in a nice cooperation with the devotees, in a loving way, what do we need to go to the spiritual world? We're already in a professional way, professional state. And then in due course of time we will leave our body behind, and by Krishna's grace we go to the spiritual world. Or we go wherever Krishna wants us to go, or where Prabhupada wants us to go. If he has another plan, then we can go there. In case that's maybe our challenge is to follow the plan of Krishna. So to say. Our plan and our ideas, how things will be, is one thing. Krishna's made it different. So we should learn to be open for Krishna's plan. We can say something. Maybe there's some question or comment. To what I said or I didn't say. Maybe it's completely different.
We should stay in temple, but we to preach outside and to distribute books. This is okay to do.
Yes. Probably didn't mean that we shouldn't go out and preach. But meaning we should stay in the devotional atmosphere. But then and there, at that time when he said that, and when I listened, it was somewhere in Australia or something, 73 or something, then we were still having the temples and we were very much living in the ashrams. And if you didn't live in the ashram temple, then you were lost. At that time, still we wasn't so mature, so the devotees went outside, they just disappeared somewhere. Maybe they do nowadays also. Taking Krishna with and engaging in the devotional service in some way or another. It's okay. We should stay with Krishna, okay? Whether we are in the temple, let's say in the temple, outside the temple, and sometimes someone stays in the temple and is just complaining. They better go outside. Okay, now the temple president.
I just sometimes, because you mentioned that we should do our best, as Sachinanda Maharaj also says, we do our best and Krishna makes the rest. Like we should endeavor, and Krishna will help us. Or even if we are not completely purified or reach the perfection, still maybe Krishna will give us some mercy and help us. So it seems like there are two different opinions on that, because some they say no, you have to be pure first, and only if you are a pure devotee, if you have reached Krishna prema, then you can enter the spiritual world. And sometimes we hear, just do your best and then you get the mercy and you can enter. You may like to say something on that? Or?
Well, that is challenge is, now how do we define a pure devotee? What is a pure devotee? So I say here, well, from the words today, is one, he has no time limits, okay? He's unlimited engaged in the devotional service. So we may or may not fit that. And sometimes, but then you have this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. when there's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's and associates are making theatre plays, with the pastimes of the Lord. And then let's see if Prabhupada says that in the verse. But it says in any case that, and this theatre play should be performed by pure devotees of the Lord. If you're not a pure devotee, you shouldn't make such plays. But then he explains the pure devotee means to follow the four regulative principles. So that he makes you can say, a basic standard of pure devotee, chant 16 rounds, follow four regulative principles, engaging in devotional service. It's a pure devotee. Then we know, well, I may be chanting 16 rounds, following four regulative principles, engaging in devotional service most of the time, some of the time. Okay. But we know that there may be other things coming into the picture also. So maybe from our own point of view, we will not think of ourselves as pure devotees of the Lord. Of course, I take this, to actually enter into the spiritual world, you may have to be pure. But Prabhupada said 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles for the rest of your life, you will enter, okay? But again, in order to do that, I believe you have to be pure in your heart. I mean, there is no, at one point there will be a pure, okay, now that is what I desire. There may be other things also, but then it's a quite crazy things goes through our mind. But that's your mind, is it you? So we could then put the question, what do you want? What is the mind projecting on us and what is actually you want? So actually the soul, I mean, no, I want to serve Krishna. So that we can be pure in intention. And Krishna can take us back. Then I read this one thing in the Back to Godhead magazine once. Then, well, Prabhupada did say, well, then Krishna is playing with the coward boys in the spiritual world, and then you come there. But then, well, if you come there and you not still have some material desires, then Krishna will say, no, where do you go back? Because if you still have some material desire, what are you going to do there with the material desires? So someone else to enter there, you have to be free from the material desires. Okay, but then, what is your desire was just the craziness of your mind. But we try to bring the mind under control and purifying it, to purify actually our consciousness, our desire. Okay, priority.
It's not, as you mentioned, if you get to the point that for many years you attain 16 rounds and 4 rules, that has such a dynamic power inside, that one, this is my question, is it that one automatically develops that greed and that lobha to hear about the Rajavasis, which is needed to get to the level of spontaneous love?
Yes. I think someone's mentioned association, you know. By association we develop in a certain way, so to say. But of course also association is, why do I associate with certain devotees or this or that? You know, so it's not just, if I try to artificially, form myself into something, question also what it, 16 rounds, 4 regulated principles, many years. What is really, what is really in my heart, actually? Let's say, you know. So that's, but I think association is one thing. It may also be in different stages in our life. There's a brahmacharya, there's a grihastha, there's a vanaprastha, there's sannyas. We're not really interested in sannyas, isn't it? We're interested in pure devotional service, okay? Keep that in mind. Sannyas may have been a mistake in some way, but it's not it's here. So, but the real point should be pure devotional service. And that, to actually get to that point, we may actually need the association of devotees to get to that point. And then that in combination with, four regulative principles, chanting of a sincere endeavor to progress in Krishna consciousness. Because there is a sincere endeavor to progress in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is in the heart. and he can make arrangements. So in one sense I just say Krishna, Hare Krishna, please take care of me. And I try to do my part, and then, and he can bring us that things are there that supports, so that we make the last steps, final steps or middle steps or whatever, beginning steps. In one sense we're always in the beginning. We're always in the beginning of the continuation of our spiritual life. So we're all beginners in that sense. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Now, you wanted to.
Yeah, isn't a clear answer to Krishna Prem Rupa's question? Like, doesn't Krishna in the Gita in 1855, he says Bhaktimam Abhijanati Yavanyas Jasmitatpadaha. Isn't that a clear standard for where one needs to be at in order to enter the spiritual world?
Yes.
Being fully conscious of me, being absorbed in full love of Krishna.
Yes.
Because it sounds like we have kind of a mechanistic kind of idea, like by following 4 principles and chanting 16 rounds, that this is as if we could kind of, as if it would be something depending on numbers, but...
No, I said that it doesn't depend on... you're correct, you're correct. No, it's... what I take here is... because in any case, that 1855, and this verse, what I read from today, is after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that it's interesting. I agree with you. It's I just find it's an interesting interesting combination of verses here, so to say. And then in the 50s, actually we said 55, no, that's 54. Then Brahma-Bhuta Prasanatma, that's 54. And then we have today's, I was reading 56.
Mm-hmm.
So by my grace, he will attain to my abode. So that's it. Of course, Brahma-Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochantina Kamshati Samasa Veshabhutishu Madhbhaktim Lavate Param. Yes, I many times quote that. Actually, there is where the devotional service starts. That's Krishna says, not devotional service. In that state, he attains pure devotional service.
I don't have it exactly in mind, but do you have the 1855 verse in front of you?
Yes,
what was it exactly?
Because this is 54, and it's 55. Bhakya mama vijanati yavan yasha smitatataha tatomam tatato gyatva visati taranantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness, yes, okay, as I said, in full consciousness of me, with such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So we have to, okay, then I would say, I agree, we have to attain full consciousness of Krishna. Then the question is, that's 16 rounds for regulative principles. Just Prabhupada gave that promise. I mean, that's why he made such a statement. That's why I make it. But it's somehow at the end, or in the middle, or wherever, attain full consciousness of Krishna. Or we say real love for Krishna, or pure desire for Krishna. And I say by Krishna's grace. Because that's again, as you said, the numbers. I tried to make the point about the grace, because the final point is grace. So when someone doesn't fail to always follow, but then he failed, but by the grace, because it was his sincere endeavor. And if Putana was delivered, Krishna may also deliver us when we sincerely try on a devotional life. Thank you for. Now, as far as I see, our time is over, but the priority, I suppose, is in control.
An interesting point is the Prabhupada memory by one early servant of Prabhupada. He had a friend, sannyasi, I forgot his name. He was with him at that moment where his mother passed away.
Yes.
Half a minute before, or 15 seconds before, she asked her son, forgot his name, sannyasi, she asked him, "Is your Krishna now with me?" She died. After a few seconds she asked, "Is your Krishna now with me?" And when he told this to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, by your kind surrender, your mother went back to Godhead. So she wasn't a devotee. She was not favorably. She was very heavy against the movement. But is your Krishna with me? He died, and Prabhupada said she went back to Godhead. Now, what does it mean? It means probably Kripa Siddhi, that she got everything by this chanting of Krishna's name and remembering Krishna's name at the moment of death. As Bhagavad-Gita said, Yam Yam Vapi Smarambhava. At the end of the life, whatever you think.
Yes, that's H.
Yes.
Whatever you think of time of death, you will attain. And the first Krishna says, whoever thinks of me at the time of death attains me. So that's the point there. But of course, I would say, why just at the time of death? I mean, one sense we are dying every day, in every moment in a precarious position. We can just walk out in the street. I mean what something crazy can happen. Okay, so yes, thinking of Krishna at the time of death. Okay, so thank you for listening. I'm trying to speak. Reminders of Krishna. Thank you for your questions. We'll be reflecting on it. What does it mean? So to say. I'm going to keep going, and that way also. It's nice that you're here listening and questioning, and that way our minds keeps absorbs in thoughts of Krishna, and maybe think, what does this Krishna consciousness, and we say once it's mean to me? How do I apply myself to this? Because there's a directions, and then also maybe deeper contemplations, meditations on the philosophy and the practice. So to say. Okay, how is it? Is it time limit, or we have good devotees with no limits?
Just a little
If
question.
someone is hungry, can already, prasadam will be ready, that's fine if someone likes to eat, but if those who like to listen, can continue.
The prasadam is ready outside, okay? I understood you're right. Okay. Prasadam is ready outside.
Just a little question because of this question. I think I read somewhere that if there's a pure devotee, then the 100 members of his family could be released or delivered through this.
Yes.
Maybe I was thinking, is this the fault? Maybe because the mother was not agreed with this, but same because of Krishna mercy, she was liberated through this because he was a devotee.
Yeah, something like that. There's also statements like that. That was in connection with Pradhan Maharaj and Shingadev said, not only your father is liberated, but I think it's 21 generations backwards and forward. That means one pure devotee has a great impact on the family, or the family is creating great boon. Exactly how that looks. Like sometimes I think, well, that sounds too easy in one sense. But here's a son sitting by with the mother and this at this last crucial moment. At the last crucial moment, she asked, "So is your Krishna now with me?" And then Prabhupada said she went back home to Buddha. And by the grace, in one sense, of the son, because the son was taken to Krishna consciousness and also served. So we want to do something good for our parents and then take seriously to Krishna consciousness. If you want to do something good for your coming generations, and take to Krishna consciousness. Okay, good. Then I end here. I'm satisfied, okay. Okay, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
With all respect to Krishna Swami.